Meanwhile, Hungary's leader continuing with his surprise peace mediation tour after Russia and Azerbaijan. Viktor Orban is in China talking peace with his hosts while those Russian missiles rain down on Ukraine. For more, we're joined from Manosque in the south of France by historian Jacques Rupnik, a director emeritus of research at the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, and by France 24's Kethevane Gorjestani from our International Affairs Desk. The timing of Orban's trip coming, of course, when these Russian missiles are raining down, also coming the day after French elections. And guess what? They've announced after the elections the formation of what is now the third largest bloc in the next European Parliament.
Absolutely. And the reporting is also that the reason why this was announced today officially and the arrival of the national rally within that group, the Patriots for Europe, that was done at the request of Marine Le Pen and of the national rally, saying, wait until after the elections. This, of course, because of the proximity of Viktor Orban with Russia, with Vladimir Putin, which is a criticism that has been ongoing on the national rally here in France. And so they didn't really want to be seen as joining forces with a friend of Vladimir Putin in the European Union, while they were at the same time talking about how they had distinguished themselves from Russia. Remember that just a couple of weeks ago, Jordan Bardella had said that he considered Russia to be a multidimensional threat to both France and to Europe. And now they're allying with Viktor Orban's party to form that third bloc. And Jordan Bardella will be the president of that bloc in the European Parliament. So a shifting of alliances there. But as you said, they are now the third largest bloc. They're ahead of the Liberals of Renew Europe. They're ahead of the ECR of Giorgia Meloni. They are now forced to be reckoned with. But the fact that all of the far-right groups have not completely aligned means that they are a little bit still splintered. And so the question is, how much power will they be able to wield when the other parties are hoping to sort of have a sort of protective bloc to prevent these groups from gaining any crucial positions in the European Parliament?
Jacques Rupnik, listening to Kethevane Gorjestani, is it Marine Le Pen or is it Viktor Orban at the center of the game here?
So far it has been Viktor Orban. Of course, had Marine Le Pen's party come close to power after yesterday's election, well, perhaps things could have looked different. No, this is an initiative by Viktor Orban. His great ambition, he said it in a recent interview in Le Point, the French weekly, his great ambition is to bring together the two most powerful women on Europe's right wing, and those are Marine Le Pen and Giorgia Meloni. They belong to two separate groups, as has been mentioned, in the European Parliament, the Conservative Reformers and the Identity Democrat group. And what Viktor Orban is trying to do is to create a new group, the Patriots, which would try to bring these two groups, or most of these two groups, together. Let me also mention that in his group of patriots, he also has Slovakia's Prime Minister Fico. He also has the Czech leader, Mr. Babiš, who has won the European election and is likely to win the general election. He's trying to bring the Central European national populists together with West European national populists. Marine Le Pen, of course, is a partner. Giorgia Meloni is also now sought after. So we will see whether he succeeds in his reunification of the European right. If he were to succeed, well, that would be a major, major shift in European politics.
And it's all happening while, coincidence of the calendar, Jacques, Hungary holds the rotating 6-month presidency of the European Council.
Absolutely. And this is, of course, the timing is very deliberate. Viktor Orban waited for his turn on the European presidency, went to Kiev, to everybody's surprise, without consulting with anybody. And from Kiev went to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. Now he's in Beijing. So he clearly considers that taking the European presidency, the rotating presidency, I mean, people should understand he's president for 6 months, and this is each country is taking turns. And there were people saying, how could somebody who is not actually observing European rule of law norms take over the European presidency? Well, that could have been said maybe 10 years ago, but today there are a number of, not only a number of governments, but a number of parties that are very like-minded and that are coming to power, not just in Central Europe, but in Western Europe. So, and Giorgia Meloni is one of them. And the question is, can he, and this is what he's trying to do, is basically undermine, and this is why many people have felt extremely uncomfortable, and this is an understatement, about his initiatives, his foreign policy initiatives, is that this is not just bringing together the European right. After all, this is, his own problem. He's on the right, he's nationalist, and he wants to unite the nationalists. Incidentally, it's not easy to create an international gathering of nationalists. Well, they have different approaches. No, the main problem is, can you, through this policy, through these foreign policy initiatives, undermine the European efforts to not only condemn, but support, condemn the Russian invasion, but support economically, financially, humanitarian way, and militarily the Ukrainian resistance to that aggression.
So, Jacques Rupnik, when Viktor Orban popped up in Kyiv, people were like, well, the Putin whisper is there. Maybe they are talking about some kind of a serious peace initiative. Maybe he's acting as a go-between. We'll see what happens. Now that he's been to Moscow and to Beijing, what are your thoughts?
Well, that clearly his attempt, at least to create the impression, I'm not sure that we are there yet, is that he can play a role as a go-between between the countries you have mentioned and Europe. Well, he doesn't have any European mandate for that. He doesn't have anything. But he starts with the following assessment, and he's repeatedly say that. He thinks Ukraine cannot win this war. This is his premise. I'm not saying this is the right premise. This is actually not a very good start to talk about on behalf of Europe. Ukraine cannot win this war. Therefore, it is in its own interest, in Europe's interest, to find some kind of ceasefire, if not actual peace, with Russia. That means probably, I mean, I'm speculating what the content would be, accepting certain territorial concessions. Viktor Orban is also very reluctant about Ukraine's prospect of joining the European Union. As you know, under the French presidency 2 years ago, Ukraine was promised possibility of joining the European Union, and some progress has been made, and very recently opening of negotiations have been announced. Well, Viktor Orban said openly that he thinks this is premature, and this is not in Hungary's interest, because the Hungarian agriculture would suffer, etc., etc. And he spelled out a number of conditions, including the respect for the Hungarian minority in Ukraine and its rights, which he considers are being trampled upon. So here he is trying to play the go-between between Russia and Europe, including China, sort of being, as he says, the man of peace. I want to bring peace. You know, this is how actually he ran during the election. This is not our war. We should, we wish well to the Ukrainians, but we should not get involved in this war, and it cannot be won. So this is Viktor Orbán as a peacemaker, but nobody gave him any mandate, and there's a lot of frustration and anger in some European circles about the initiatives he takes as he takes over the European presidency.
And we saw him pop up Kethevane, Gorjestani in Azerbaijan at an organization of Turkic states, and the little Hungarian flag, no EU flag though in front of him. Kind of like Marine Le Pen, she doesn't have the EU flag behind her.
No, and it's interesting talking about the frustration within the European Union as they look at Orban trying to be this peacemaker. Vladimir Zelensky, who is involved in this situation and this peacemaking, slammed and dismissed Hungary's involvement, saying that Hungary alone cannot mediate any peace between the Russians and the Ukrainians, saying that only big blocs, big countries like the US, China, and the EU as a whole can be mediators in this possible peace between Russia and Ukraine. And another thing to note, when you look at the European Parliament, back to the point of Giorgia Meloni's brand of populism, and as opposed to this new Patriots for Europe brand, one of the main dividing lines between her side of the far right and their side of the far right is exactly Russia and the situation in Ukraine. She has been a staunch supporter of helping Ukraine. She has been opposed to Russia, and you can't say that at all of Viktor Orban. And even though Marine Le Pen has in recent months tried to show a sort of distance with Russia, they are a little bit closer to Viktor Orban than they are to Giorgia Meloni. And that is one of the reasons why Viktor Orban maybe hasn't been able to court Giorgia Meloni within his camp, because there is this main issue and main point of disagreement between these two sides of the far right.
All right, the drama unfolding again the day when there was that Russian attack on a children's hospital. Kethevane, Gorjestani, many thanks. I want to thank Jacques Rupnik for being with us from Provence for this conversation. Stay with us. There's much more to come. More news plus the day's business and sports.